Werewolves. Strange beasts indeed. And this series seems to have struck a chord in many of you. You just simply can't get enough of it. And I'm finally back with part 3 of the Werewolves at Aholes series. Although technically this is the 5th story in a much wider universe. Now, if that doesn't make any sense to you and you're wondering what I'm talking about, click on the playlist in the video description below and you'll see the other stories which are included in this world. And it all starts coming together this evening, so if you haven't heard the other stories, you might want to listen to them first before getting onto this. Well, my dear friends, it's Sunday and you deserve a little treat at the weekend, so sit back and relax with your favourite drink once again, and listen. Okay, so I know I left you guys on a cliffhanger last time, and I know it was a bit of a dick move. Yeah, my bad. Obviously I survived because I'm not writing this as a zombie, or am I? No, the answer's no. But what happened was, we were on this trip, me and Milo, we're on a trip to take care of something that happened in the course of this coming part. We kinda had to set it aside for the time being and deal with a bigger issue at hand. But I'll make a separate one about that later, or something, because, holy shit. If what was happening already wasn't enough, we stumbled into an entirely different shit show, and you guys have to hear about it. And by bigger issue, I mean the blood-sucking tweakers trying to go Blade 2 on us, in case you aren't up to speed. I was trying to get this all typed out, but in the course of that, some fuckery ensued. I had to close up shop and, kind of bail out suddenly. Anyway, in case you guys haven't already figured it out, mixing vampire blood with your own doesn't exactly do the body good. I tried to panic and hide it. That worked for all of 5 minutes before my right arm was on fire, and the black lines had made it up my entire right side to my shoulder. Needless to say, Lita was upset with me afterwards. But at the time, once I started screaming in agony, she made it a point to violate pretty much every traffic law to get me back to Gay Jake's house as fast as possible. Actually, I'm almost positive that they're passing new local traffic laws right now because of what she did on the road that day. Those poor safety cones. So, by the time we whipped into the driveway, things were getting pretty bad on my end. On the way there, she managed to explain to me, over the blare of Dex's frantic rambling, that I'd mixed blood with Morning Bitch and that I was headed down Vampire Street pretty fast. And that, if we didn't take care of it soon, that would be that. I couldn't get out of her what take care of it meant, until we made it in the house. Stop freaking arguing with me and hold her down, Lita commanded as she burst through the door, dragging my wailing body along as she did. Wait, hold me down? Why? I asked through gritted teeth. The rest following her orders, holding me in place as she ran upstairs in a flash. What's happening? What's she doing? I continued, trying to jerk myself free. My question answered itself because in only a moment Lita was already back on her way down, carrying a large machete and a medical kit. Hold up. You're not about to cut her out? Joanna started to question, but Lita spoke over her. This is the only thing we can do right now. Mightn't even work at this point. Best I can do is try to take it off as high as I can and still be able to tourniquet it. Now, hold her down and keep your hands clear, she said, drawing the blade and readying it. No, hell no, get away, I barked as I started kicking and flailing like all hell. God, please hold still. It has to happen. It's for your own good, Jasmine pleaded with me through teary eyes. But nope, I pitched an absolute shit fit. Hey, don't judge me until you've had someone standing over you, ready for, to really amputate your whole arm. There were 6 people in that room, positively struggling to hold me down because I was having none of it. But despite my savage thrashing, suddenly they all managed to find a way to get me still for just long enough to... Now, there are only a very few select sentences that could be spoken capable of bringing a total halt and absolute quiet to that room at that moment. As it just so happens, I'm back, everyone. Sorry it took so long. Had to poop out my werewolf arm. was one of them, which Milo announced as he exited the bathroom with a pair of headphones on his ears. Silent as the grave, it's thrown around a lot, but I'm pretty sure even the birds outside stopped chirping for that one. What the hell's going on? He asked, pulling his headphones off and tossing them aside, allowing Sweet But Psycho to permeate through the room. Her blood. Vampire. We need to hurry, Lita said, trying to take aim once again. Oh, shit. Why didn't anyone say anything? Here, give me that, Milo said, holding out his now completely human arm. Lita extended the machete's handle for him to take. Oh, not that, you goddamn Amazon. Her hand. Give, he demanded. Walking over to the crowd of people holding me down, still completely motionless from the lingering disgust, but still very much in pain, he reached down and took my wrist in his hand and gave my cut palm a large, wet lick. There, he said, as I felt a cool relief washed up my arm and across my chest and neck, and then down the rest of my body. Where's Tegan? She could have done that a lot sooner without, well, whatever all this was, he added. She's in the shower, Leslie spoke up. She let everyone else take a shower first last night, so there wasn't any hot water left. So she decided to take one in the morning instead. Suddenly, a faint look of alarm flashed across Milo's face. Oh no, he said in a quiet tone, a slight quiver to his voice. Oh no what? Gage 8 asked, still breathing hard and patting his chest from all the excitement. Just wait. Shouldn't be much longer, Milo answered. A few seconds after that, we heard the loud slam of a door from upstairs, closely accompanied by deliberately stomping footsteps. Upon hearing this, Milo began trudging toward the stairs, taking the blanket off the back of the couch as he went. He reached the steps with just enough time to unfold the blanket and hold it high up in front of the stairway as Tegan began marching down to the tune of Who Flushed the Toilet? The water became so hot so fast. As she descended, Milo wrapped the blanket around what was obviously a dripping wet and stark naked Tegan. She continued her tirade as he struggled to get the blanket securely on her soaked body and calm her down enough to explain the situation. Did you do it? She asked loudly, to which he nodded shamefully a few times. Why would you do that? Damn, it was so hot I think it was burning my... She stopped suddenly as she noticed the situation in the living room. What's going on? Why are you holding that poor girl down like that? Tegan asked when she noticed that Leslie, Dex, Trey, Gage, and Joanna all still had me pinned to the ottoman in the center of the room. She got attacked by a vampire at the grocery store. Some of his blood got mixed with hers. I was about to take her arm off and try and stop it, but that's when my... Lita attempted to explain, but she never got the chance to finish as Tegan lunged towards me like a bullet, causing the blanket to flop to the floor. Oh, my dear, I'm sorry. Are you okay? You poor girl, she exclaimed as she dove onto my still immobilized body, wrapping her arms around me as she did. Now, I'm not one to blush, but right then you could have fried an egg on my face as I felt the water on her soak through my clothes as she constricted me in her comforting hug. As I looked around the room at everyone, my eyes wide with surprise, I could see they were all doing their damnedest to avert their gaze. Then I heard Jasmine whisper in my ear, I'm going to let this one slide, since you almost died. Thank you, I whispered back. You're welcome, she giggled, wrapping her arms around my shoulders as she joined the hug. I noticed over Tegan's shoulder that Dex was tiptoeing his way in to get his hug on too, but Leslie grabbed him by the ear. Yeah, no. Nice try, Slick, she said, yanking him back to the chair next to the fireplace. After about a minute or so of the soaking wet cuddle puddle, Gay Jake spoke up. All right, that's enough. Too much more of that and you're going to start getting checks in the mail from Brazzers, he said, throwing the blanket back over Tegan. Now, you take your naked ass back upstairs and dry off. Oh, and get dressed, he continued as she started towards the stairs. Soon after, Tegan descended the stairs once again, and as soon as she was back, Gay Jake caused us all to convulse with fright, as his voice shattered the uneasy silence. So, what the hell just happened? That was when Lita and I explained to everyone everything that had gone down at the grocery store, all the way up to discovering the injury on my hand, which Jasmine and Joanna were now working together to bandage. Then Milo and Tegan explained that their saliva basically has some kind of super antibody they produce in their own bodies. Anything from Ebola to the common cold just wipes out pretty much instantly. Yeah, I think it has something to do with our crazy healing, Milo said. Like, when we change, it's basically our bones breaking and our muscles tearing and filling in the gaps. It's what makes the whole thing possible, really. Curious, I asked. So, you have a real-life healing factor? Yes, like the Deadpool character, Tegan interrupted loudly, causing everyone in the room to look in her direction. Milo said the same thing when I tried to explain the healing to him. Oh, I got all the comics, Milo whispered, leaning down next to my ear. How fast do you guys heal? Trey asked from his place next to Joanna. Watch this, Milo exclaimed, taking the machete from beside Lita's chair and, before any of us could actually process what he was doing, put his hand on the coffee table and lopped his index finger off. As he did, the expression on his face flashed briefly from one of confidence to one of shock, as if he suddenly remembered that hacking a whole finger off actually hurts a whole goddamn lot. Gay Jake shrieked as Milo picked the severed digit off the table and tossed it his way as he chuckled. Here, hold that for me, would you? Our alarm didn't even have time to die down before he held up his hand so everyone could watch his new finger sprout from its stump, every now and then giving a soft pop or crack as it did. Oh, God, Dex said as he began to gag behind me. Don't you puke on my couch, Gay Jake shouted at Dex, but started sympathy gagging along with Dex soon after. Please, stop or I'm gonna, he said, covering his mouth as he spoke. About a minute later, Milo had all fingers back exactly as they were. Everyone gathered around to inspect his freshly healed hand, pulling and poking and prodding as they did. It brought me back to that first night, when everyone gathered around to marvel at the two towering beasts that they were at the time. At that point, it seemed like a near-death experience. The blood loss, the struggle to keep my arm, the almost amputation, the regrowing finger, and Dex and Gay Jake's retching all seemed to hit me at once. I'm not feeling so hot, guys. I'm just going to run to the can for a minute in case I hurl, I mumbled as I stood and made my way to the bathroom at the far end of the house, away from all the noise and excitement. All right, sugar, you take your time, Gay Jake said softly. We're going to go get those groceries in before the cold stuff starts to turn. I wanted to offer to stay and help, but I could feel my stomach start to do flips and decided it was probably better to get to the bathroom before I dyed Gray Jake's carpet whatever color ended up coming out of me. I only just made it to the toilet before everything that was inside of me was out. After about 45 minutes or so of enjoying the cool, cold dark of the bathroom, I finally motivated myself to stand up off the floor and rejoin the group. As I walked down the hallway, I began to hear Milo and Gay Jake talking to one another, and then I heard my name come up. Lightening my steps, I stopped just around the corner. Yeah, I know, eavesdropping is wrong. Shame on me. Anyway, I started to be able to make out what they were saying by then. Oh, baby, you can't let that get to you. She might have the attitude of a honey badger with a hemorrhoid, but the poor girl's had a hell of a hard time, Gay Jake said to Milo. I was about to whip round the corner and stop him right there, but that nagging sensation to know what other people say about us when we're not there, well, it got the best of me, so I bit my lip and stayed hidden. What kind of hard time? Milo asked. Well, in case you hadn't noticed yet, she tends to lean towards people with the same hardware as her in the romance department, Gay Jake began, and after Milo nodded his head, he continued. Things can get pretty tough for people like her and me, and little old Jasmine, anywhere in the world, but especially so down here in the South. That poor girl has got some of the worst of it. When she told her parents what she was all about, they sent her straight off to a conversion center. And that ain't no place for anyone. Never mind a 15-year-old girl. What? That's the place they try to make gay people straight, like Jesus and prayer and shit, right? Milo interjected. You got it, sugar, Gay Jake answered. But they can get a lot worse than that. And when the Bible Belt couldn't beat it out of her, well, her parents just tried a regular belt instead, among other household objects. Jeez, Milo said under his breath. Oh, it don't end there, Gay Jake said. That's just where they started. After a few months of having new welts whipped on top of the old ones, didn't make their teenage dealer any more interested in a good old-fashioned penis. Well, they threw her out on her ass. That's about the moment she fell out of the frying pan, bounced off the concrete, and landed straight into the fire. What? It gets worse, Milo said in disbelief. Well, there's definitely more after that, Gay Jake continued. Now, if you're a scared and hungry teenage girl on the street with nowhere to go, any port in a storm, like they say. She eventually met a woman in her 20s who offered to take her in after they started, well, getting close. That might sound a bit creepy by itself, but it don't end there. After a while, that woman started making her pay her way while she was staying in her house. Pay her way? Why does that not sound like she just did the dishes and took out the trash? Milo asked, nervously. Because that ain't what she did, honey, Gay Jake answered sadly. I don't want to go into detail, but there's probably a lot of pictures and videos on that dog internet thing that she wouldn't be happy about. Gay Jake went on as I heard Milo take a slow, deep breath in response. And that's about the time I found her. Not too awful far from here. Trying to trade a stolen EBT card for cash. Lip busted, one eye swollen, almost shut. Oh gosh, she looked a damn mess. What'd you do? Milo interjected again with a bit more enthusiasm this time. I told her I'd give her a choice. If she wanted to, I'd give her whatever she was asking for that card, as long as she promised to give it back to the owner instead of me. Or she still gives the card back and I take her back home with me, where she would be allowed to stay as long as she needed, under the condition that she goes back to school and don't steal shit anymore, Gay Jake said. What happened then? Milo asked, shifting noisily around in his seat. She told me to go fuck myself and threw a stick at me. I don't know what I was expecting to hear, said Milo, but that somehow sounds about right. So what'd you do after that? He asked. Oh, I had that little shit arrested. That stick split my head wide open, Gay Jake replied. But then after she sat in the tank to cool down for a while, I explained what the situation was to my cousin in the PD, then told her I'd get her out, but the same conditions still applied. She wasn't happy about it, but I did a damn fine job of convincing her that she was about to go to actual prison. I'm very persuasive, he added. And she just went along with it? No fuss, no attitude? Milo asked. Oh, God, no, child. That bitch was feral. She must have tore half this house apart before she calmed down. Bless her little heart. Gay Jake laughed. But, long story short, this is where she stayed all the way through college. Well, I didn't have a... Milo began to say, but was cut short after the trip down memory lane had finally got me bawling like a kid. Oh, dear. Get in here, you nosy little heathen. Come on, Gay Jake said, inviting me into the room with them. Now, you know better, he scolded. I know. I'm sorry, I blathered between sobs. Then Milo started to stand up and walk towards me. Don't you laugh, I sniffled, trying to calm myself down, and then Milo did the most out-of-character thing imaginable. He hugged me. What are you doing? I said, squirming around in the awkward embrace. You better not be trying to put a kick-me sign on my back. Yeah, I'd never do that. That's so immature, even for me, he said as I heard the sound of crinkling paper behind me. I'm just proud of you, he continued, stepping back and holding something in his hands. When I asked him what it was, he opened it to reveal my knife, but with half the blade missing. It must have broke when Lita was bashing Morning Skank's brains in. Wow, you stabbed an actual vampire in the frickin' face. That's pretty epic, he added. Thanks, I said, wiping the snot and tears from my face on my sleeve. Honey, tissues right here on the table, where they've always been, Gay Jake said in mild disgust. So, the lick that cured me, right? I'm back to normal? I finally asked, having brought my sniffling down to a reasonable level. Well, sorta. It stopped it, but whatever it did do while it was doing what it did is gonna stay done. Yeah, it'll stay done, Milo answered. So I started, but it cut me off. Probably gonna have one hell of a handshake from now on, he said, pointing at the wooden arm of the chair next to where I was being held down. It had been squeezed into splinters that jutted out in all directions. I looked down at my right hand and noticed for the first time that my fingernails had all turned that color of off-black you see in like buffalo horn and junk. Yeah, those are probably going to grow to a point from now on, so you're going to want to keep those trimmed, and you'll probably also have found a new appreciation for bleu steak. Bleu steak's one step less cooked than rare, to where it's actually basically cold and raw in the center. Yeah, he was right, it is pretty great. Gay Jake then sent me back up to my old room and told me to get cleaned up. Then he'd cook us all dinner, and we'd figure out what to do next. As he left, he grabbed Milo by the arm and said, Come with me, Jack Sparrow. I'm going to need a strong man to help in the kitchen. Oh, why does everyone keep saying that? I'm supposed to look like a gypsy, not a pirate, he complained as Gay Jake dragged him along. As I turned around and started to head up the stairs to my old room, I noticed the board-up piece of paper and decided to see what kind of stupid shit Milo was about to tape to my back. Once I began to uncrinkle it, the words written in black permanent marker lined themselves back up. I kick vampire ass, it said in terrible handwriting. Smiling, I neatly folded it back up and stuffed it into my pocket as I made my way up the stairs. That evening, as we all sat around the dining room table eating the pot roast that Gay Jake and Milo had worked on all day, much to Milo's chagrin, we discussed what we'd do next. We didn't have our first breakthrough until someone made an off-handed remark about how Joanna's friend was lucky he ended up not coming. The breakthrough was when she responded. Yeah, dodged the bullet on that one. Just by the skin of his teeth, too. Yeah, he waited until I showed him the spot we were going to on Google Maps to... She trailed off, as we all began to stare at her intently. I mean, no, you guys don't think... How long had you known him before that? Leslie asked. Oh, a couple of months. He works in the same store at Opry Mills, and he mentioned he spent a lot of time in the woods, she said, trailing off once more as the realization began to set in. Our backward-ass, yin-yang luck had struck again. We began to formulate our plan. The first thing that came up was how the vampires would be dealt with. Milo and Tegan explained that one-on-one, or even a lot-on-one, well, vampires couldn't do a hell of a lot to stop a fully hulked-out werewolf. They were basically just massive engines of destruction and carnage with fur. The problem lay in that the blood-sucking bastards could heal faster than they could, and could only be killed by a very specific and extremely rare metal. You mean silver? Dex asked upon hearing this. Nope, Lita answered, pulling what appeared to be a large Rambo-looking knife from under her chair and stabbing it into the table, causing Gay Jake to wince and rub his temple. Did you have to stick it in the table? Gay Jake complained. Orichalcum, Lita continued. Everyone from the American United Association of Certified Vampire Control Technicians has some kind of weapon with that metal laminated into it. It's the only thing that hurts them permanently. There's only one place to get it, and only a few people who can work with it. As we all examined it, we could see the perfectly straight, gold-colored lines that crisscross randomly over the steel surface. Lisa then went on to explain that each member of the each member of the thing has a weapon made especially for them once they join. Yeah, so what it looks like what has to happen is, if we can get all of them into one place at one time somehow, me and Tegan can maul them to pieces. You guys can run behind us and put the kibosh on the leftovers. We'll have to keep moving to make sure none get away, so we can't do it all ourselves, Milo explained. So, leader, how do we get more of those things? We go to see the man that made this one, she answered, flicking the handle of the comically large piece of cutlery. I'm going to warn you, though, he's a real mean one. He's not someone you'd like to bump into on a cold, wet, rainy night. Well, any other time, to be honest. He's about the best there is at what he does, so we're going to have to deal with it and take one for the cause, she cautioned. So, we need to figure out who's going to go. What do you mean, who's going to go? Trey spoke up. Can't we just call or email him? Or text him even? No. You have to request these in person. No correspondence of any kind that leaves a record. You go, make your request. He makes it while you wait, then you leave, Lita explained. What about paying the dude? Dex asked. Yeah, I can't imagine he does this shit for the warm feeling it gives him to help his fellow man. The association and the place they get the medal from takes care of that. No idea what the specifics are, though. All I know is the medal comes from this weird building full of monsters. Calls itself a hotel. Never been, don't want to go. Can't make me, Lita said. Oh, not after the shit I've heard about that place. I'll go. Her voice spoke loudly over the conversation. Looking around to see who the idiot was who just volunteered to visit Freddy Krueger on his home turf, and after a second of following everyone else's wide eyes to the source, it hit me. I sat my fourth Captain Morgan and V8 strawberry banana smoothie down on the table and thought to myself, oh fuck, that's my voice. Unfortunately, by the next morning, neither I nor anyone else had managed to talk me out of my decision. Either their arguments weren't strong enough, or my stubbornness was too much. But regardless, I'd made up my mind to stick to it. Most of this was my own fault, after all, so it was the least I could do. The plan was that Milo would stay and buddy up to Joanna's co-worker to try and get a lead on where those throat-sucking crank ticks were camped out. And while he was bromancing that guy, Tegan and I would go see the cantankerous weapon maker. It was brought up that it might be better for Tegan to stay and flirt the information out of our Mark. But Milo seemed a little less than enthused about Tegan pressing herself seductively up against another man, so we didn't press the issue. Apparently he thought it wiser to send her off on a who-knows-where and how-long trip with the chick that he's been drooling over for the past few days. Not that I had any plans to actually try anything, just an observation. Words I would have to repeat to myself over and over as Tegan came down the stairs to join us in the living room that morning. Curves in all the right places don't begin to cover it. The clothes that once fit with just a little room to spare were now straining to hold themselves together. In her words, I ate much to change a little in case we find trouble. Apparently, unlike going straight to the gut like Milo, when she packs it into turn, it goes, well, exactly where you'd want it to. How can I put this? To any of the other degenerates like myself in attendance, you know Sonny Leone? That. And to all those that don't, you clearly aren't living your best life. Shaking myself out of my stupor as Jasmine coughed into her hand from across the room, I asked Lita where this guy was supposed to be. Bessemer, she answered, walking into the kitchen as she spoke. Where the hell is that exactly? I asked again. Sweet Home Alabama started blaring from someone's phone speaker behind me. I turned to see Milo holding his up, an accomplished smirk plastered across his face. Real cute, dude, I said as I looked closer at his screen, noticing a map with a red pin towards the middle of the state, along with some text underneath that read, Bessemer, Alabama, founded 1887. Name for the Englishman Henry Bessemer, inventor of the Bessemer process, which revolutionized steel production. Seems oddly appropriate, I said, reading the screen. So how are we going to get there? They'll probably be looking for our cars and have their eyes on bus stations and junk. You mean the vampires? Dex asked. No, I mean the Harlem Globetrotters. Yes, of course I mean the freaking vampires, I barked back. Then we started to figure out the next step. Getting there without using a vehicle with our license plates, or a compromised form of public transportation. Hey, what about something like Uber? Gay Jake suggested, peeking his head out from around the entrance to the kitchen. I mean, that might work, but wouldn't it be really expensive, especially both ways? I asked. As soon as I did, Lita came from around the corner and took the phone from Milo's hand, messed with the screen for a second, and then gave it back and walked back into the kitchen without a word. We done been over this, so I can cover it. About the only thing I can't swing is a private jet. Besides, that just sounds like a setup for a vampires versus werewolves on a plane movie. That just sounds like a horrible plot. Not even Samuel L. Jackson could save that one. He chuckled. What's Cerber? I heard Milo say next to me as he scrolled through his phone. What? I asked, gathering around with everyone else. What are you talking about? Milo answered, holding his phone up to my face. Here, look. It's an app, but I've never heard of it. Well, open it, Trey said, tapping on the screen. As he did, the screen turned black and words began to fade into view that read, Cerber is a dedicated ride-sharing service company that ensures anonymity and safe transportation of the paranormal. Are you a paranormal being or entity in need of a reliable and discreet ride-sharing service? Well then, do we have the app for you? Welcome to Cerber, the #1 paranormal ride-sharing app in the world. What the I whispered to myself. At this point we all began to look around and check outside, suspicious that someone was screwing with us. Wait, come back. There's more, Joanna and Leslie said together. Walking back over, I began to inspect the screen again. We here at Cerber offer top-notch service at a fair price. And so on it went. Basically, it said that it worked almost identically to any other ride-share service, with the exception that the rates for each ride were based on the threat the passenger posed to the driver. Then we spent a few minutes running through reviews of the company and some of the drivers. There seemed to be one guy named Jim that stirs up all matter of hell. His reviews were actually pretty hilarious most of the time. Well, that's perfect, Milo finally announced. If it's calculated by risk to the driver, then Tegan is harmless. It ought to be practically free for you guys. Half of us scoffed, as we'd all apparently remembered Tegan turning a man's head into a meaty water balloon not long ago. But she downloaded the app onto her phone and signed up all the same. Once we both had packed our bags, she asked, Okay, so I just press this button and a person comes to give us a ride? Yeah, just hit the thingy right there and we wait for someone to accept and show up, I said, looking over her shoulder as we stood in a group in the driveway. Should be a little while before anyone comes, though. Okay, here goes something, she said, pressing the button that calls the ride. About that time, a passing car slammed on its brakes, squealing to a halt before slowly beginning to back up towards us. No, there's no freaking way, I spoke under my breath as the car approached and the window began to roll down. Hey, y'all know how to get to a cowboy town from here? The man in the driver's seat called out. What? I asked stupidly. A cowboy town. It's somewhere around here, right? He replied. Oh, right. You mean the rinky-dink Wild West place? Yeah, it closed down. Kid Rock bought the place a few years ago. Sorry, dude, I answered after coming to my senses. Oh, shit, the man exclaimed before speeding off. After a few seconds, we all turned to look at each other and burst out laughing. About 5 minutes later, Tegan got a notification that her request had been accepted and the driver was on their way. Another 10 or so minutes passed before the driver arrived in a black SUV, which pulled into the driveway. Once the door began to open, we saw their feet hit the ground behind the definitely too dark to be legal tinted window. The first thing we noticed was that one of the driver's legs was prosthetic. As the driver closed the door to reveal a woman who looked to be in her mid-30s, she greeted us with a cheerful, "Hello, everyone. And who's my lucky passenger today? She exclaimed as she began to walk towards us. I hope it's you, cutie, she said, winking at me. I said, taken aback. What? No, I mean, yes and no. She made the request, but I'm coming too, I added, pointing towards Tegan as I did, and hearing Jasmine groan in the background. Oh, well, lucky me, she chirped. Well, actually, you're the lucky ones. Lucky I was passing through already to help open a new centre down here. Otherwise, there wouldn't have been another driver for over 200 miles. So, where are we going? Bessemer, I said quietly, attempting not to garner any more of her attention than necessary at this point. Ah, excellent. That's pretty close to where I was headed. Everyone ready? She said in the same enthusiastic tone. So, after we all said our goodbyes, Tegan and I loaded our bags into the back and hopped into the SUV for the 3.5-hour ride. And for those of you who have never driven from Middle Tennessee to Middle Alabama, it's not a scenic trip. You get to pass through Pulaski, birthplace of the good old KKK, Lynchburg, home of the Jack Daniels distillery, and more than a few Confederate monuments. Sorry, I meant Southern heritage monuments. And if that isn't bad enough, you have to suffer through that long-ass trip down the Civil War wasn't about slavery avenue, just to end up in, Alabama. My uncle used to say that the best thing to ever come out of Alabama was the I-65. Boy, he wasn't kidding. But before we even got started, Miss Daisy started getting real fresh with me, which was weird to say the least. I'm not really used to being flirted with, at all. And needless to say, that sent my bitch gland into overdrive. Oh, I like the hipster look, the driver said, glancing into the mirror. It suits you. Hipster? You know those are fighting words down here, right? I retorted. Well, I just mean that the glasses and the baggy shirt and the gym shorts and the Chuck Taylors. She trailed off. This is how I dress to sit in the car for 3.5 hours. People actually dress like this on purpose and go out where you're from, I said, my tone getting more agitated. Well, yes. A lot of people in California go through a lot of trouble and spend a lot of money to look like they bought everything they're wearing from a thrift store. Oh, you bought everything you're wearing at a thrift store, she mumbled regretfully. Yes, I did, I answered, the scowl on my face harshening. I could tell Tegan was struggling desperately to stay out of it. Oh, I'm sorry, she apologized, glancing into the mirror again. Still in a mood, I brushed off the apology. Whatever. Eyes front, Terminator. Dang, girl, she mumbled, focusing fully on the road again. About an hour and a half later of riding in silence, it had given me time to think that maybe I'd been unnecessarily mean to the driver. I started to say I was sorry, but before I could, she suddenly whipped the car off the freeway and into a rest stop. Holy shit, it's a spaceship, she yelled. Well, I'd forgotten about the monolithic decommissioned rocket that was set up along the way. I guess it would be pretty cool if you'd never seen it before, especially just happening across it when you didn't know it was there. Then Tegan looked out the window and flipped her shit right along with the driver. So, after taking like 50 pictures of them under the burners and with the shuttle in the distance, we took a pee break and were back on the road. About the only stop after that was when we ate at a Waffle House on one of the exits. We'd collectively decided that she had to experience one while she was in the South. Not long after that, we were approaching our destination. As we rounded the last turn, we noticed a U-Haul rental truck parked outside of the place that was supposed to be where we were going. Do you want me to wait for a minute? You know, just in case. The driver, who we knew now as Charisse, asked. Yeah, maybe that's probably the best, I said, and Tegan agreed. As we pulled up and began to approach the door, a man in all black, wearing a pair of those old-timey round sunglasses, exited the house, carrying with him a box of what looked like random computer and surveillance equipment as he made his way to the truck. Before we could even speak, he said, Awfully sorry, but I'm terribly busy. You'll have to come back some other time, he said in a slow, heavy voice. Then he began to make his way past me to the U-Haul. "Hey, wait a goddamn minute," I exclaimed as I reached out and grabbed his arm in an attempt to put my newly acquired kung fu grip to use, admittedly squeezing harder than I probably should have. As I latched on and clenched my fingers together, it caused the contents of his box to shift and clatter. "We came all the way down here because you're the only one that can make the shit we need. Now—" I stopped. The man wasn't even fazed. I was originally worried I might be in danger of breaking the man's arm after gripping so tightly, but now I just felt, in danger. As he stared down at me through the deep void of the round, infinitely black lenses of his glasses, he spoke in a viscous, acidic tone. "Well, that's a mighty strong grip you have there, little girl. Now, off," he commanded. And before I had time to make any kind of choice in the matter, my hand was already retracting as fast as it could. "I'm sorry," I squeaked, clasping my hands together behind my back. "We really need your help," I added, averting my eyes down towards the cobblestone sidewalk and squeezing my hands even tighter in an effort to hold the tremors of fear that had begun to streak up and down my spine at bay. The last time I was that afraid was in the woods when I thought I was seconds away from being torn apart and eaten alive. And the last time I felt such an icy chill down my back was that same night, as I watched a 7.5-foot tall monster with murder in its eyes stalk up to a shack in total silence. I'd had it. I couldn't take it anymore. I didn't want to be there. I wanted to go home. I wanted to be as far away from that man and this place as possible. But before I could turn and tell Tegan to follow me back to the SUV, the man had begun to move. He huffed, taking off his glasses to reveal his impossibly pale blue eyes, and then placed them into his shirt pocket, from which he also withdrew a small notepad and pen. "Turn," he commanded once again, causing my legs to obey before consulting the rest of me. He placed the pad on my back, which caused me to jerk slightly in mild panic, and then began to scribble something. "Here," he growled, placing the notepad back into his pocket, save for the one sheet he'd written on, which he then tore from the rest. "This man can make what you need. He takes the requests when I can't be bothered with them. He's young, but he's competent in his craft. Now, I have much more important things that need my attention, so if you'll be so kind as to leave me to my affairs," he said, before placing his glasses back over his face and making his way back towards the truck. So sorry, once again I've left you on a bit of a clinghanger. Well, truth be known, this part of Werewolves and Aholes is about an hour and a half long, and I simply didn't have time to record it in time for you to listen to it this evening. So I've clipped it off halfway through, and I promise you will be getting the rest of it next Sunday evening. So, sorry for a little bit of disappointment, but it will be back in its conclusion next Sunday. Is that good enough? I hope it is. Until then, my dear friends, well, not until then, because I will be back with a story again for you tomorrow night. Monday just rolls around so quickly, doesn't it? So, till then, sweet dreams and bye-bye. Thank you so much for choosing to spend your time listening to me. Now, if you enjoyed the Dr. Creepin experience, then come find me on Facebook. Come chat with me on Twitter. Listen to the background music and download it if you like on SoundCloud. Drop by the store, pick up a t-shirt. And, importantly, if you've got a story you'd like me to read, send it to Dr. Creepin's Vault, the subreddit I set up so that I could read your stories. Now, looking forward to seeing you all again real soon. So, come check me out, okay?